Okay, hey everyone. So, for today's video, I wanted to talk about attachment. So, obviously, you see the title, Love. It's not attachment, but it kind of is. And it just goes to show like we have so many different definitions of things. So, attachment to one person could mean something completely different to someone else. And I just want to start off with two definitions of attachment and then go into detail. So, the first definition is extra part or extension that is or can be attached to something to perform a particular function. So when we take this definition and we say that we're attached to someone or we get attached, in terms of love, you have to break that down and realize other people are to some degree an extension of you. They're a reflection of your ability to love, how you see yourself. They're going to reflect back to you and behave based on all of your assumptions, right? So even in terms of giving love and relationships a purpose, you can kind of repurpose how people are a part of your life. Like, what function do you give your partners? Do you give them the function of someone who's supposed to make you feel secure, someone who's supposed to make you feel loved? Like, are you creating a dependency for them to give you assurances, or are you just allowing them to be an expression of the love that you have within? Like, if you break it down and step back and be objective about the purpose and the function of people in your life, that can give you clarity to see, okay, maybe I'm having an unhealthy connection to this person because I'm making them the reason for my happiness. So then when I'm not happy, I'm blaming them too. Or if you could step back and be like, well, my happiness has nothing to do with them. I have a choice in how I react, how I perceive situations, and whether or not they're behaving however I want them to, I can still be happy no matter what. Like, it's better to have that kind of freedom than to constantly feel like your security is always going to be shaken because sometimes people can be unpredictable. Even the person with the most positive assumptions and the best treatment in the world can still be able to observe people behaving in an undesirable way, but you get to decide how you respond to that. And if you don't identify with it, you can still observe it in your experience, even if it's happening directly to you, and still be unbothered. So that's exercising a large amount of patience, just awareness to really stand in who you are and not give people the function of being able to somehow affect you. And I'm just saying that in case of the negative situations that you deal with. But obviously, even if you become dependent on the positive and then things somehow go wrong, then you see you're just as vulnerable if you become attached to positive things as well. So it's kind of best to be neutral and still be able to enjoy things and be in the moment versus being so dependent on things always working out a certain way. And then the second definition is attachment is affection, fondness, or sympathy for someone or something. So most of the time when you hear people talk about, oh, I have this attachment style or I'm attached to people, whatever, we see that in a negative way. We see that as somebody holding on and, not really being secure enough to, stand in their own. But as you could see, the two definitions and the one that I just read shows affection, fondness, sympathy for someone or something. So it's just interesting to see how society creates this definition of attachment styles when, I guess in their mind, it could be a certain type of affection, but how do you have affection and company that with, jealousy or, really holding on to people? like those two things aren't even the same thing, but it shows when you have certain definitions and we confuse them or just assign meaning to things when they mean something completely different. It's not even that the definitions are wrong, it's just being conscious of what definitions you have for things. The same way we could define love as something that encompasses the pain and the heartbreak, when someone else's definition of love is this pure positive state where you could never feel any type of pain or anything. So it's really understanding, like, okay, well, if that's the definition of attachment, and society has created this whole other, psychological analysis and of love and relationships, it shows definitions can be tricky, and you could see your own definitions of things based on how those dynamics are playing out in your day-to-day life. So even going further in depth with that, we hear about like anxious attachment styles. So people who are insecure, of feeling abandoned, unworthy of love, and they have this codependency, tend to shift to blaming their partners because they're blaming them for not fulfilling whatever those needs are, versus gaining the empowerment to make yourself feel better, to stand in your own worthiness and know that you're naturally worthy despite having those people act and behave a certain way. Like, regardless of what anybody has ever done to you, you are always worthy. But people who are anxious don't have that in their awareness. They're so based in fear that they can't even see it any other way. And then on the other end of that, people crave intimacy at the same time, and they worry about receiving it. So if you have all these conflicting feelings and emotions, fearful about receiving things, yet you're craving it, how can you expect to receive something you're afraid of? It's so much mixed signals. That's why you can't receive clear, consistent, steady love if you're projecting all that anxiety and codependency. So you really have to be aware of that, no longer have that behavior, and shift your attention to what it would be like to feel secure and safe all the time. And then we hear about avoidant attachment, which is people on the not on the opposite. It's really the same thing but different coping mechanisms. But people who are avoidant assume that there's going to be a loss of their independence, and they like to minimize closeness because of that fact. So it's similar to the last video I talked about, thinking that you're going to lose your independence. I feel like when we've been smothered or treated a certain way, whether it's with family or other influences that were kind of role models for love without us realizing it, we feel like we have to take on these defense mechanisms based off of that treatment, and then it carries into our relationships without us realizing, my bad, that we have this built into our mindset about how love and communicating works, when it's really not the case. So I just say all that to say, it's just, you have to redefine things in a way that works for you, and then you'll see the result and the byproduct of that. So love can mean so many things to different people, but my advice is just to create a definition of love that gives you the freedom to receive everything that you want. You don't have to have a specific definition, but even just based off of the type of experiences that you want to have versus what you're having now or what you had in the past, you can get a clear definition of what you assume about love, and then just rework it and practice it how it feels within yourself, to have this unlimited, feeling of being at home emotionally, being safe, being able to express yourself unapologetically and know that you're fully accepted. That really just comes down to having that self-acceptance first, because nobody can give that to you. Nobody can make you feel safe and secure. I mean, obviously there are people who might have given you that experience, but it wasn't going to happen until you had that within yourself. Like, people naturally will be attracted to you based on what you're putting out. And you may not have realized that you were doing it, but on some level, you were feeling safe and secure, and that drew that person in that, you know, just reflected back to you what you were able to, you know, vibrate at in terms of your state of being and stuff like that. So I think this is where I'm going to end this video. Hopefully you guys like the series. I got at least 2 more videos and then we'll be wrapping it up. But thank you guys for watching.